right. Welcome everyone. Thank you for tuning in to the first annual Black Queer Town Hall. I hope you guys are having a lot of fun so far. This is an epic event that I'm so thankful to be a part of. We have a great panel for you today. This discussion is called Back to Work. And so what we're going to be talking about working or not working during the COVID pandemic, during the Black Lives Matter movement, during Pride Month. And I just want to introduce you to our panelists. First up, we have Honey Davenport, a recording artist and reality TV star. Say hi.
Hi, I'm Honey Davenport.
And we also have Jason Fiasco. Jason is a consultant and movement builder. Say hi, Jason.
Hello.
All right. We also have Laith Ashley. Laith is an actor, model, singer, and activist. Say hi, Laith.
Hey, everyone.
All right. So if we want to just jump right in, I'm just going to ask you guys, these times are crazy, right? So we're dealing with the pandemic. We have the Black Lives Matter movement where we're dealing with all of that. And then, Pride Month is, COVID seems like it wants to push us back in the closet. So how are you guys feeling during all of this, while you're working? How do you feel your mental health is kind of being affected by this, everything that's going on right now?
I am 100% very much confused. Like, we get mixed messages from all parts of our government. I've gotten mixed messages from all of my friends. For the safety of my mental health, I've taken very little news these days. And I am legitimately just kind of living in quarantine and just confused. I feel like quarantine's going to end and I'm not even going to know because I'm just like really confused as to what to do. I've only left my house for a movement. That's all,
Yeah.
I would say for me, especially with COVID-19, like social distancing felt like social isolation. And as a queer person who has found themselves and their identity in queer spaces, it was very challenging to how do I feel affirmed at this time, especially at the precipice of coming into Pride Month. I think for me, it's been really taxing emotionally, and oftentimes even physically, just not having the ability to be with community in ways that I found to be empowering and affirming.
Same here. So it's been kind of an emotional roller coaster. I can say that I'm a homebody, but I like the freedom to be able to go outside and be social when I want to be social. Obviously, physical fitness is a big part of who I am and a part of my job. So not being able to access, the gym took a pretty big toll, but I kind of learned to use what I had at home. But it was definitely very isolating. I felt, I know if Peppermint is listening, but Peppermint knows how I lost it a couple of times. I had several moments. And I was ready for some sense of maybe new normalcy, whatever that may look like. But then, after the COVID pandemic, then came the Black Lives Matter movement, which was well overdue. And it happened because we were all at home with our devices, and we were being flooded with these images constantly. So we had no choice but to speak up and speak out about what's been going on.
So, speaking of that, I think that everyone being at home, and being able to see these videos and watch these videos is helping, kind of light this fire for the Black Lives Matter movement, right? So, what do you think is going to happen, after COVID, right? Do you think that after COVID we're going to be able to keep up the intensity? Like, what ideas do you have for people, after COVID? Because I think the focus is going to shift from, trying to go back to work or trying to rebuild their businesses, right? So how do we keep that intensity going?
The only thing that's not acceptable is for us to go back to things as they were. I think that after all of this, I'm not even sure what the future looks like, But my hope, and actually not even my hope, my demand is that it's completely different and that our treatment is completely different. And the way we work and the amount we work for is completely different. So change is next.
We can't let up. There's no way. It's not possible. The more, if we stay silent and just, say, okay, everything is kind of back to normal, we're going to go back to work, etc. These changes that are being made are still happening, and they're happening right under our noses. I'm sure that if you have social media, you've seen what's just happened with transgender healthcare being, taken away. And right now in the Supreme Court, they're considering being able to, like, making it legal for LGBT people to be fired from their jobs. So this has a ton of implications, which means, like, not only will this affect LGBTQ people, but this will affect everyone, because now all of our lives will be policed. So it's possible that if your mannerisms are something that don't match up with your assigned sex or however someone views your behavior should be, you're at risk of losing your job. You're at risk of not being able to have a home. You're at risk of not being able to access healthcare. You're at risk of not being able to have, like, access a shelter if you're someone that's homeless. It's something that we need to continue to speak up on, and we need to show up, period.
Yeah. I would want to add that one of the things that COVID has pointed out to was the fact that our economy didn't work for everyone. There were people who were able to work at home and other folks who could not. And we saw government being slow to kind of like uptick on like providing support for folks. I mean, the unemployment is really great. That's up into June. Folks getting back to work is going to be slow. I think that we need a new economy. I'm starting to see a lot of folks in my community look into entrepreneurship. So as we talk about a new economy, what does it look like for our government to provide financial support, no interest or low interest loan for communities, right? To start their own business if folks want to go that route. So I think like one of the things from COVID is really the shortcomings of our economy and how it didn't work for all of us.
So to kind of feed off of that, and then I'll go back to something you said, Laith. So Jason, you're talking about the economy and the businesses, and so I think that states are starting to open up, and most of them are starting to open up, and they're saying, oh, the big box places can open up and other places can open, with curbside pickup. Like, how do you feel like that's affecting Black business owners in the state?
Well, I think that like with the history and understanding like how Black businesses always don't do well, particularly depending on some cities. I know in Atlanta,
Right.
they're probably thriving, right?
Right.
Let's say in other places, Black businesses probably are not doing as well. And honestly, I think like we need to like look at the data and report and see what Black businesses are going to be closed or closing because of this. And I think like there's a lot of information and data that is out there that we haven't seen because I think COVID-19 has really pushed us in our silos in many ways. That this data and information that we need to assess where our community is, particularly Black queer folks, right? Black women in particular, folks who sit at the intersection of communities who are often discriminated against. We need to really do community check-ins with those folks.
Yeah. All right, Laith, you said something that kind of caught my eye. You said that we can't stay silent, and so unfortunately, I'm hearing from a lot of my white friends, we're afraid to speak out. We don't want to lose our jobs or any potential clients or customers and things like that. So what do you say to those people who are afraid to speak out, right, at this time? Because, it's hard to get a job or to have clients during COVID time. So what do you say to those people?
I think that although it's a risky situation, but it's a dangerous situation for all of us. Them staying silent because they're comfortable and they're comfortable in their space. That just how long will it be until they're no longer comfortable, and then their rights are starting to be taken away as well. It's just a matter of time. They're slowly picking at the most marginalized communities. So I think that yes, it's risky. It's risky business. Obviously, no one wants to lose their job. No one wants to feel like they don't have a source of income or a way to take care of themselves. But what's happening now with what's going on in our government, they're taking away jobs and the livelihood of a whole group of people. So I don't know. There's no there's no, to me, if you're complicit with that, I have no words for you.
And I think, Honey, you probably have something to say in this too. I mean, I from watching Draw the Blood, I feel like, I mean, that just was so powerful and said so much itself. So I'm sure you got something to add to this.
Absolutely. Draw the Blood is a piece about what it feels like watching your friends remain silent as you go through life dealing with racial inequality. And, you know, when I say to people who are afraid to post or afraid to protest because they might lose their job or they might lose their homes as my friends are losing their lives, I just kind of interact with them how I interact with any other selfish person, because I think that's really selfish. And I just make it about them. I make it about them. Like, what would you do if because the danger, if we lose this fight, if the pendulum swings the entire other way after we pushed it, everybody's rights are in danger. So I like to bring up to them how they might be affected by our loss here, because that's what's really dangerous. Like, if we don't get away with this, how much are we letting the people in power get away with in the future?
Yeah, that makes that makes a lot of sense. I like that. So I'm gonna ask you guys a little bit about just the reopening in general. So now with states beginning to reopen and unemployment rates like at their highest, do you think it's too early? Do you think states are taking enough precautions? How do you guys feel about the reopening right now?
Yo, I legit don't know. Like, I've tried to look to other places in the world and like judge by what their governments are doing, because our governments have refused to release any kind of statement or action we should be taking that is like cohesive. Like, everybody's saying something different. So I don't know. Like, all I know is that I live in Cali and my donut place never closed down the street, and like nobody got nothing there. But then all of my friends in New York got all of the everything. So I don't even know what's right and what's wrong anymore.
Right. So I wanted to talk about kind of, you know, you were talking about how your donut place never closed, right? Well, you know,
Right.
And there's tons of people that are still working during this, right? Those essential workers. You know, because there are people that have to work during this time and that are on the front lines, do you feel any guilt? Do you feel any guilt for not having to be one of those people that are working on the front lines? Like, how are you feeling about them?
I don't personally feel guilt about that, but I do think that we should address how we're paying people who we've now see how essential they are to our livelihood. These people are our least paid citizens here. As we reconstruct our economy, we might want to think about how we've been paying them as well.
Exactly.
Totally agree there. Yep.
100%. That is exactly my feeling on it. You know, especially like the fast food, the groceries. I mean, all of those people are just right there. Being able to be exposed to this, and it's just crazy how low their wage is. So I'm going to move to another topic. I want to talk a little bit about the Black Lives Matter movement. And, you know, I think that right now, having this movement during Pride Month, you know, I feel like in some ways it's bringing us together. But I wanted to ask you guys and see how you felt. Do you think that they're sufficiently overlapped? Do you think they conflict? I mean, how are you feeling with the two different movements, especially in the wake of, you know, we just had some recent, you know, transgender deaths that haven't gotten enough media attention, you know? So I just kind of want to see how you guys feel about that.
I believe Marsha P. Johnson said there can be no celebration until there are rights for all people. And that's really relevant right now. It's really weird to see my queer brothers and sisters complain about things like protests or riots when those are the things that gave us our rights in the first place. And I think that it's really important for us to take a pause on the issues that we have in motion and take a closer look on the issues that haven't moved at all. Because this is not even history repeating. This is racism that never ended.
Yeah. I want to add that one of the things that I think we're missing with the overlap between Black Lives Matter and Stonewall and the queer liberation movement is the idea of patriarchy, right? Like this idea of like cis heteronormative patriarchy that I feel like operates not only in our policing system, but then even oftentimes operate in Black communities, right? So like oftentimes we don't hear as much about Breonna Taylor as we did about like George Floyd or Sandra Bland with Freddie Gray, right? I think like this oftentimes like this thing that we have to protect Black masculinity, and then like Black femininity is often second tier. So I think like there's intersection between our Blackness and gender expression that I think are great intersections for us to talk about what does quality reform look like for our judicial and policing system.
And talking about, the workers and all of the people that are on the front lines, I just wanted to kind of see how you guys were feeling about, being artists and producing, your poetry or your art or your music videos, any music, anything like that, and just kind of creating like this beautiful, maybe love stories, like joyous art during this time, right? We're dealing with a global pandemic. We're dealing with Black Lives Matter. There's so much death going on. But as artists, your job is to bring joy to people. How do you feel about doing that during this time?
It feels, I'll go. It feels a little. I think like it feels a little for me as like a pleasure activist and one who feels like the revolution must be joyful, right? It feels that like right now, because there's so much rage and hostility, that my voice in art, which is to help create a beautiful world, would not be well received at a time like this, right? Where people want to hear the frustration, people want to hear the anger, but there's like dreams and visions of hope that I think like we could look to and access, and finding the audience and outlet for that is really challenging at a time where the streets are enraged, right? And like folks want to hear that rage, and media wants to see that rage. So like there's a lot of that, and it's just like, okay, cool. Where do I find and access my voice to talk about the beauty that is forthcoming, that is coming here?
Yeah.
Right. I make social justice art. It is the underlying theme in all of the art that I make. So in this time, I've made sure to not stop producing, because my art that I create is what has been furthering this conversation for as long as I've had a career. And it provides an extreme amount of hope for people who don't know how to deal with what's going on right now. Even with Draw the Blood, with my photo shoots, there is an underlying theme of the world that I want to live into. And I think creating that gives people a space to like something to look at as a possibility. Like, I think that it's time for us, people of color, while white voices are taking a step back, to amplify ourselves as well, to put out our art as well. As an artist, like, I literally would die if I stopped creating, because it's how I get my food, it's how I pay my bills. So in the midst of Blackout Tuesdays, I had an interview with Tracy Ellis Ross, who is another person of color, a prominent person of color, that was pushed back. And in response to that, I didn't get paid for a week until it came out. So, like, I think we need to pay attention to that, like, this is affecting Black pockets as well. And I think that Black creators and Black artists should still be creating right now. It might be really important to provide hope for some people.
Yeah. I'm caught in the middle of wanting to put out content and then...
Did my sound cut out?
No. Can you hear me?
Yeah.
All right, cool.
Yeah, you're good, honey.
Yeah. All right, awesome.
Okay.
So I was saying I'm kind of caught in the middle of wanting to, put content out, and then also it's wanting to continue to educate folks. Like, I've been posting, historical events that are very important in like the civil rights, that were very important during the civil rights movement, and things that people did not learn and maybe didn't really go over when they were in their high school history classes. And I've posted several things, and people are like, thank you so much, I had no idea. I'm just like, where did you go to school? How do you not know that all these things happened? And why don't you want to learn? It seems that folks only want to learn about or Google whatever affects them personally. And until we are all viewed as one family, where what happens to one of us means it affects all of us, I think that until we view things in that way, people are not going to care. And I know
So
that
do you
sounds
think
sounds
that,
grim. Yeah, go ahead. Sorry.
I was going to say, do you think that, during these COVID times where people have a lot of extra time to Google things and watch whatever news channel that they want, do you think that people are educating themselves more? Do you think they're relying on social media? Do you think they're relying on the news? Like, what do you think about that?
To me, I don't think I think that many people don't necessarily know how to do their own research. A lot of people tend to, they go on Google, they type in whatever question they have, and they don't know how to identify a good source from a bad one. So I think that social media is very important in that sense. But then again, there are people that are posting all sorts of things that aren't necessarily true.
Oh, how do you feel about, you said, how do you feel about there's always this conversation about, are we supposed to be educating our white friends? Some people say, don't ask a black person.
Yeah.
What do you guys think? Do you think they should be asking black people, or do you, it's like you said, not everyone does all their research. So
Yeah.
for people that don't know how to contribute to, our movement and help out with what we're doing, do you think they should be asking black people? What do you think?
I think that it's so weird because I don't think it's our responsibility to educate white people on how to treat us. However, if they're doing a terrible job at treating us correctly, we might as well say something and tell them how to do it better. So it's a weird thing. Like, no, you shouldn't have to ask me how to treat me. But since you haven't done the research for yourself, I will gladly share it with you and demand the respect that I'm entitled to.
Yeah. I'm a little weird with it a little bit. I think because even me who sit at the intersection, right? Like, I know there's only so much I could understand about, let's say about certain things I could understand about undocumented folks, right? As a person who is not undocumented, right? So as a person who is not undocumented, right? So there's only so much that I can understand. So I do feel like there is some level of care, right, and compassion that we have to have for folks who are on the other side of oppression, to be like, okay, cool, let me walk you through how you are showing up, because how folks have been informed to show up in the world is invisible to them, right? That's just how they were raised. So it's kind of like holding up a mirror and just be like, hey, this is how you are showing up, and this is how it's being perceived by me. And I think that's laborious work, right? It's emotional work, and not everyone has the capacity to do it.
As far as having the capacity versus not having the capacity to do it, I think that it can depend on the day. Right now, it's very tiresome work. I get emails and DMs constantly of people asking me to educate them on Black Lives Matter things, as well as trans specific things, and whether their child is transgender, and what do I do, and what are the resources. And I feel like, okay, if I don't say something, I do feel like I have an obligation, because if I stay silent and a very caring mother is asking for resources for their trans child, if I don't give them these resources, then I'm kind of taking away from that child. So it can feel like a burden, it can feel like a huge weight that you're carrying, but because of where we are in society right now, I feel like I have no choice but to do it.
Okay. All right, so I think I'm going to ask you one last question, guys. Just kind of final thoughts about COVID-19. Do you think that it's pushing us back in the closet? How do you think we're doing in Pride Month in the COVID times?
I think that the human race is known for overcoming. We're known for enduring. It's what we've always done, and it's what we'll do here. And I think that is what we'll do with Pride. We'll figure out a way to have our celebration. And my only real hope is that while we figure out how to do it digitally, and how to do it with social distance, and how to celebrate in all of these beautiful ways, that we remember that there's a lot of things that can't be celebrated right now, and those issues need to be pushed into the forefront of our marches and our shows and all of our beautiful expressions of who we are. That there are a lot of people who just for expressing who they are get to die.
Mm. Yeah, I would say that COVID-19 can be if we allow it, right? I think like there's amazing stuff that's happening online. I do find that there's power in our visibility in community and on the streets. I think like there's added power in that. I remember last year I was walking down the street and I was just cleaning out, and a couple like black girls was like, "Oh my God, yes, it's Pride Month!" Like, so my existence was a reminder to them that our month was here, and they gave me life and celebrated that. And I think like that's something that I miss about this year is that like I didn't have that experience, right? So I think like it can if we allow it to. However, I found like we can find community in times like this for our affirmation, for our support, and for our pride.
Yeah,
And I think that's. Oh, go ahead.
I was going to say, I think that this time has definitely showed us that the power of social media. So many of us have, very large platforms, very big followings, and we can use the technology that we have at our fingertips to kind of push forth, positivity and overcoming and growth. And yeah, I mean, we don't get to maybe celebrate in the same capacity that we did last year, but we do have that to look forward to as we continue this fight now.
And I think that I think we're showing that right now, right? With the Black Queer Town Hall, I think that's exactly what we're doing. So I just want to say thank you guys for doing this. This was a lot of fun. It's very nice to meet everyone. Happy Pride Month.
Happy Pride Month.
Pride.
Too.